our life expectancy is going down. First time, as far as we know, in recorded human history. The main factor that's driving this US life expectancy to go down year after year after year now is obesity. We believe that in a little more than a decade from now, over half of the US population will be overweight by over 100 pounds. Yeah? So this is a disease that's hitting everybody. No one is immune. But you know, one commonality amongst all those things is mitochondrial dysfunction. And no one's talking about it. And very oftentimes, you'll see someone who's lost weight in the normal way by dieting, and they've lost their health along with it. I was in room 1 just a few weeks ago. I stepped in and I didn't recognize my patient. She hadn't been in about 8 months or so. Had lost 60 pounds. Had aged, I kid you not, 10 years, for sure. So that, of course, is a more extreme example, but I do see versions of that all the time. We're going to talk about weight loss. I do this one every January. Figure, I'm going to take advantage of this thing, right? And it's a little bit, I'm a minister's son, and my father, who long ago passed, I also felt a little sorry for him because he had to bring the Christmas message every year, right? And you got to come up with something every year. And I'm in a much easier position than he was in a certain way because the research is doubling in my field every 14 months, doubling. So guess what my hobby is? Reading, and lots of it, and traveling to symposiums all over. And it is the only way that us doctors can keep up with all that. And this time, I can honestly say, this one I didn't get from reading, but more as an aha moment. It happened in church. Sitting there Sunday morning, and I'm contemplating some of the latest statistics that have come in again. This was this week's headline. And it's a very depressing thing, right? For the last 3 to 4 years now, our life expectancy is going down. First time, as far as we know, in recorded human history, outside of World War I, II, the Civil War, things like that. So, this is a depressing statistic that Dr. Jeffrey Bland, one of my brilliant mentors, predicted would happen about 20 years ago. He saw it as something that was just absolutely inevitable. And as I'm contemplating all those things, right, there's the food and environment and the higher stress, and there's all these factors. The main factor that's driving this US life expectancy to go down year after year after year now is obesity. Yeah, we're hearing about the opioid crisis, and it is a factor. The higher suicide rates, it is a factor. These are all factors, but the biggest factor of all is the increasing rates of obesity. We believe that in a little more than a decade from now, over half of the US population will be overweight by over 100 pounds. If the current trends continue. It is absolutely shocking, unbelievable. And very often what's been picked on is that there's a disparity. That it's mostly African Americans and the natives. Nope, 80% of this is being driven by white Americans. Yeah? So this is a disease that's hitting everybody. No one is immune. And I don't have to go into the fact that obesity, all the numbers, like 1/3 of teenagers are now diabetic or pre-diabetic, right? The numbers just keep rolling in, and it's not my job here to make you aware of that, because I think all of us are very aware of it. But then I thought, you know, there's all these factors that we always preach, and those basics still count, and I'm going to cover those, because otherwise this whole thing that we're doing today would not be complete. But the aha moment hit me in church. I says, you know, there's one thing no one's ever talking about. But the one thing that I see in my patients who have trouble with weight is a decline in immune function, an increase in autoimmune diseases, lots of neuropathies, brain fog, cognitive decline, fatty liver disease, so decline in liver function. Thought, you know, one commonality amongst all those things is mitochondrial dysfunction. And no one's talking about it. And I could already see in my head, Nobel Prize. Couldn't wait to get home. Excitedly told my wife about it. Just used my enthusiasm, so yep. Okay, well, quickly consult Dr. Google. And my favorite website, PubMed.com, right? All the research papers. And man, some people beat me to the punch. There's some research in fairly obscure journals yet, but I think will become mainstream, that shows without a doubt, and I hope to show that to you, that mitochondrial dysfunction is a huge driving force behind the obesity epidemic that's hitting us today. So we're going to go through that. I'm really excited to present this totally new angle, and we'll reinforce some of the old stuff, because every year that I've done that, I've tried to emphasize at least one element that's really relevant. Like 2 years ago, I really went into insulin resistance and how impactful it is. Well, it turns out now with brand new research that insulin resistance is actually mitochondrial dysfunction, right? So everything is just really, really connected, and we're going to dig into this. So as an overview, we're going to go through the basics first, and then we're going to go into this mitochondrial thing that I'm talking about and the solution towards it, because I don't want to leave you just hanging. And we're going to first get into the basics. So this thing would not be complete without mentioning food, and food first, right? Always start with food. Food is medicine, and that's why we have some awesome health coaches here to reinforce what us doctors are preaching, and we have dozens of programs available for different kinds of people. But really, when you really boil it down, yeah, we have these specialized food programs for special circumstances, but the one thing that's common is that the food has to be real. So basic, so simple, yet so few people adhere to that. Right? First thing in the morning, bowl of cereal, grab some milk. You know how far removed that milk is from real milk? And besides, are we cows? We're not designed to actually assimilate and digest it. We lose those enzymes by the age 4 or 5. Dairy products is now considered the second leading cause of diabetes. Yeah, because we react against it. It's an inflammatory agent. Fermented dairies, less so. I'm talking about milk. Yeah? So, there's that. Then the cereal that gets poured in. Let's say it's cornflakes. Here we have corn that has been just changed so much. It's nowhere near original corn anymore. And it's loaded with who knows what they sprayed on the fields, right? So here we get this new to man food loaded with chemicals, and then we pile it into these high silos, and they pressure cook this stuff, I kid you not, at 10,000 pounds per square inch at extremely high heat. And then you have these little holes on the outside of the silo where it gets where it just gets pushed out, kiln dried, and that's your food. That's cornflakes. What is your body supposed to do with that? It's going, what is this, right? And it mounts an inflammatory response, and the whole thing goes on and on. And remember, inflammation is really the emperor of all maladies. It's behind virtually everything that's out there. So the food quality is absolutely critical. So if you go to this grocery store or farmer's market, pretend great grandma's sitting on your shoulder right here, whispering in your ear, I don't recognize that. Don't know what that is, never heard of it, right? Look at the labels. That is so critical. Basic, good food. So eat more plants, real plants, organic when you can. If you can't, plants are still a whole lot better than a lot of the other foods. Yeah? And so eat mostly plants, maybe eat a little less because we do overeat. And when we do fish, fowl, meats, it's a side dish. It's not at the center of the plate. I saw this really interesting study for kids' lunches that if we have a plate that has little areas to it and it's got a little picture of what kind of food has to go where, we can change behavior incredibly with kids. That's just a hint for moms and dads out there, where you can make it a game where you write on there, this is where this goes, this is where that goes, and just automatically we'll gravitate towards eating more plants, so kids can do this. So food quality, critical. Eat more plants, eat real food. Toxicity and inflammation was another year's presentation. And we covered how toxicity gets stored in fat cells. So if we are toxic for whatever reason, and this could be heavy metals, it could be environmental exposure, it could be bad food, it could even be stress toxicity. It has to go somewhere. The body can't always eliminate it all. So what does it do? It shoves it into the next safest spot, and that is our fat cells. It's pretty stable there. This is why people, when they try to lose weight, and they do it in just a calorie restriction kind of way, yes, they can lose weight. It's really tough, because their body says, no, I don't want to lose that safe house. Yeah? And they become ill. And very oftentimes, you'll see someone who's lost weight in the normal way by dieting, and they've lost their health along with it. Brain fog, autoimmune disease. I was in room 1 just a few weeks ago. I stepped in, and I didn't recognize my patient. She hadn't been in about 8 months or so. Has lost 60 pounds. Had aged, I kid you not, 10 years, for sure. Got to questioning. She had done a keto diet the wrong way, had lost that phenomenal amount of weight in a toxic manner, and triggered 2 autoimmune diseases, one of which was rheumatoid arthritis in a severe form of it. So that, of course, is a more extreme example, but I do see versions of that all the time. So toxicity and inflammation needs to be addressed whenever we are trying to get healthy. Very often when somebody that has an obesity issue, say, comes in at 350 pounds, I'm thinking of a gal first that we struggled with here. The first thing I said, let's forget about the weight. Let's just get you healthy. Just forget about the weight. So we did that. We went to real live food, right? Hit the detoxification pathways, got the inflammatory numbers down, and her toxicity numbers, I'm sure, went down along with it because her liver panel numbers just improved dramatically. And then we decided to start the official programs, which in this case happened to be keto with some intermittent fasting. It's been doing great. It's been doing great. Exercise was another focus in another year, and exercise is very, it's quite critical. Now, I saw a study this past week on sitting versus standing at work. It makes a difference, but not much. So we can't just rely on that. It makes, you consume about 3% more calories when you stand versus sit. Okay, 3% is not a whole lot. So it's not about calorie burning as much as it is getting your metabolism going with exercise. Because I've got this watch that keeps track of my movement and how many calories I've burned, and I burned 110 calories. Well, that's nothing, right, for all that effort. So you don't look at that piece of it. You look at exercise as increasing your overall metabolism. The hikes that I did yesterday included interval training, and today I am still burning more calories because of that. Right? It's at least 36 to 48 hour effect. And if you do it as a habit, it's always there. So exercise should include interval training. And that can be done at any age. Right? My 88-year-old mom can do it. I can do it. If you're 20 years old, you can do it. Interval training essentially is 20 seconds, go all out. And for an 88-year-old, that's going to look different than it does for me. But get that heart rate up, then recover for a couple of minutes, and then 20 seconds again. I'll talk a little bit more about exercise and how not to exercise in a little bit, but the interval training is pretty important. And if you do interval training, and then you get together with Blake back there, and meet him downstairs, let's say today you did interval training, and then you meet with Blake tomorrow, you're going to get triple the benefit from Blake's exercise plan because you have secreted growth hormone, which really is like a steroid. This is how I have been able to dial back the amount of time I have spent exercising. And today, as I stand before you, compared to 30 years ago, you would say, Doc, you've gained some weight. True, 20 pounds. But my body fat has stayed exactly the same. Muscle. And I've been exercising less and less and less, but smarter and smarter. There is a point where, that stops, of course. So exercise, critical. Sleep. Nothing works without sleep. Right? Being functional medicine clinic, we take care of just basics first. Is the patient breathing? Are they sleeping? Right? Are they eating right? Are they getting enough water? Right? Are they going to the bathroom like they should? Those are real basic tenets that often don't get addressed. And when you stop sleep, if you miss 1 hour sleep in a night, the next day, your metabolism is down by 20%. Okay, that's a lot. Your immune system is down by 30%. Only 1 hour lost. So the sleep thing, pretty critical and needs to be addressed if we're not getting it. So let's work on that aha moment I had in church. The mitochondria. Mitochondrial function is really a central tenet within functional medicine along with gut health, right? Rebalancing hormones. The mitochondria burns fuel, free fatty acids and glucose, to produce energy called ATP. And a bunch of toxic byproducts are then produced, just like a car engine giving you exhaust because it's producing energy. And these are free radicals and CO2. Okay. This is where some of the patients get into trouble, where they're not able to get rid of that. So the mitochondrial facts are, they use 90% of our oxygen. You have over 10 billion or 10% of your weight is mitochondria. How many times do you hear mention of mitochondria out there? You really don't. Except in school, the powerhouse of the cell, right? That's what everybody knows about. But 10% of our weight is very radical. And if you are an athlete, about 15% of your weight. So if you eat blueberries, powerful antioxidants, right? Or blackberry, 95% of the power of that blueberry is used to get rid of that stuff. This is why antioxidants are so important. And your entire body weight, that's ATP every day, your whole body weight. That's how much we produce. So you can see if there's dysfunction here, that would cause a few problems. So what slows down mitochondria? Well, one of them is age. Okay, I didn't mention that over here, but as we age, mitochondrial function does decline. However, too much gets blamed on age, and most of it is really lifestyle. Because if things go right, you can maintain mitochondrial function within 80% until the end of your life. Most people at 70 are at only 50% or less mitochondrial function. Okay, and that is totally unnecessary. So part of the fact is that, and by the way, I have a new theory about West Michigan drivers. Because I was driving again, I was going down Fulton this afternoon and somebody comes at me wrong way. Probably, like, yeah, it's happened so many times to me, it's like I'm a magnet for this. And then somebody drifts in front of you, right? And then the light turns green and by the way, I'm not one of these ragey guys, but I'm watching with interest, like, why is this happening, right? And I think it's partially mitochondrial dysfunction within the brain causing a cognitive decline, which is worsened by medications. And I know I'm kind of being funny here, but it's actually quite a serious thing, and I think it's a lot of people, it's quite an effect. that they're just in this brain fog due to mitochondrial dysfunction. And some of the medications, the antivirals, especially the statins, by the way, statins are no longer used in Europe as of, I'd say, 25 years, simply because it's been linked to cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, depression, anxiety disorders, just brain fog in general. So statin is a very potent mitochondrial poison. Certain antibiotics, all antibiotics to some degree, but the antibiotic, especially the one that is in the Cipro class, is a very bad toxin. Chemo, you've heard of the word chemo brain. After somebody's undergone chemo, they're never quite as sharp and the energy goes down. It's really because mitochondrial function was destroyed. And metformins, and I can go on and on and on. But one that doesn't get considered is new to man foods. And I said foods because they're really not foods. These are compounds that we're eating that are new to man. The body has no idea what to do with it. And I think on Facebook we just put a list of the foods that are outlawed in Europe but are allowed over here. And the list is quite great. That list did not include genetically modified foods. GMO foods are not legal where I come from. Okay, and there's a big reason for that. It's because we saw the allergenic emergency visits, so allergies, double the first year alone that genetically modified soy was introduced. And the Dutch government and the English government that year said, wait a minute, out, right? And that was it for genetically modified soy, and then the other foods followed suit. So I consider genetically modified foods as new to man as well. And heavy metals obviously is a big problem out there, starting in our own mouth with the mercury fillings to, unfortunately, Muskegon thrown tons of mercury in the air due to cement plants that are over there drifting our way. And then when you go along Gary, so you go along the lake, Gary, Indiana, the amount of things that are being spewed into the air, and guess where the prevailing winds come? Everything gets dumped over here, right? And that's why right here in Kent County, we have so much contamination of water and environment. It's actually surprising how polluted we are, even though Kent County itself doesn't produce that much pollutants. And it's interesting too, the whole mountain range around California, Oregon, and all the way through Seattle into Canada is stopping all the clouds over there. So it's basically just one big barrier from what's drifting across the Pacific Ocean. And apparently what's happening there is all the stuff from China is drifting across and it's being dumped right there as rain. So they're having that problem. So we're not alone in this by any means. So heavy metals, big one. By the way, what we do is we do a urinalysis in order to try to detect that. And there's many different ways to do it, but that seems to be one of the more easy, economical, and effective ways to do it. We are drowning in plastics. National Geographic, I don't know if you saw that sign, saw the National Geographic issue this past year and there are pictures of plastics that are in our ocean, right? There's entire islands of just floating debris that are bigger than some of our states, literally, and it's all plastic, and it is just unbelievable how it's contaminating things. But even things like the plastic cups, right, on and on. We had a patient, I had a patient come in not just a little bit ago, and I walk in and he says, "Doc, I found it." I'm going, okay, I'm thinking, right? She says, "My hormones." Oh, okay. So what's going on? Because she had been suffering severe endometriosis, and it really was an incredible roller coaster ride where I would do something to try to help modulate it, and then it would be helped, and then bad again. It was just really quite profound, the agony this poor gal went through. And it just happened out of the blue about 7-8 months ago. So I was curious to see what Sherlock Holmes came up with on this one. And guess what she found? She says, "You know, I got one of those company mugs, plastic." She says, "What I do is I put my tea in that every morning, and it just sits there, and I take a sip out of it once in a while, and then I'll go back to the microwave and heat it back up again." It says, and that's exactly when my problem started. I dumped it, went back to glass, and within 2 weeks her hormones re-regulated themselves. So you see the power of plastics. They can be very estrogenic, right? Very pro-cancerous. And it's just poisoning us. And those of us that are susceptible are poisoned a lot quicker than others, right? We have a subgroup genetically. For example, think of the incredible rise in autism, right? I like to quote that when I started practice, it was 1 in 22,000. Now it's 1 in 64 kids that are being affected, okay? And yes, our pollutants have gone up in that time, but not that much. But what's been happening is just a slow degradation of mitochondrial function affecting the immune response. And how can that be such an incredible trajectory? There's one thing about mitochondrial function that most people don't realize, and that is we inherit 100% of our mitochondrial function from mom. Dad has nothing to do with it. It's got its own separate DNA, which is really cool if mom is a star. It's not so cool if mom is not. And if mom, for example, I am sure my mother's DNA, mitochondria-wise, I am sure it was really damaged in World War II. Right? By the time she exited World War II at age 16, she was 84 pounds. Right? Just starvation. And I'm sure that is affecting me to this day. But there's still things you can do. But that's part of the reason that I think autism is becoming so incredibly bad. Yes, we have a worsening environment, but I think the resistance is going down as well. Hence the lowering of life expectancy. Environmental toxins is a big one. So this is where I rushed home to go Dr. Google. Okay? And here's where some of these top researchers have to say some really elegantly done research. And I just took a quote out of a bunch of studies. Mitochondrial regeneration offers some hope in the battle to fend off and possibly reverse obesity. Okay? So I could show you, I was going to show you that, but I got this from research about a pile about this high. So you're getting just little quotes out of a lot of research there. Mitochondria can either spur or stop obesity. Another researcher, mitochondrial dysfunction impairs intracellular insulin signaling pathways. So this is a perfect storm. Insulin resistance results in congestive heart failure, loss of muscle, diabetes, and fatty liver, among other things. Okay? And just for funsies, I threw in a couple other dysfunctions that we have been able to label on a mitochondrial dysfunction, right? Early aging, ALS, Alzheimer's, Huntington's, autism, migraines. Migraines was kind of a surprising one. Cardiovascular disease, Parkinson's, chronic fatigue syndrome, dementia, diabetes. So, and the list goes on and on and on. So what we're going to be talking about, of course, is obesity and the link to mitochondrial dysfunction, but there's many other things that if you work on mitochondria that you can benefit. So is mitochondrial function modifiable? Very much so. So when we work with professional athletes, which is kind of fun on a limited basis, you know, the egos get a little tiring, but you are dealing with race engines, so to speak. And how do you get their mitochondrial function to improve? Because that improves reflexes, balance, strength, explosive power, endurance, all those things. And and by the way, mitochondrial function can very elegantly be measured by something called a phase angle. Okay, and that's on our in-body scan, right, which is multiple bioimpedances analysis. And phase angle is very relative to mitochondrial function, so you can say which way it's going, this way or this way. One of my last patients today showed a phase angle decline of 0.4, which was on a scale of 10 is actually quite a bit. And he said, yep, doc, holidays, food, I lost it. And it shows immediately, right? It's really kind of cool how it does that. Another way that you can get an indirect measurement is something called hemoglobin A1C. Okay, hemoglobin A1C is relative to how much damage is occurring on a red blood cell, the hemoglobin essentially. It is indicative to what your sugar levels have done and mitochondrial function. So hemoglobin A1C is another really elegant, inexpensive way to do it. So you exercise, and when we work with these professional athletes, it is a way to get mitochondrial function to go up. there is such a thing as over-exercise. And then you see mitochondrial function going down, that phase angle going down. So then we have an overtrained athlete who's at the edge of burnout, and their performance keeps going down and down and down. And they are so frustrated. And they hate it when I say they have to exercise less, because to them, they have to exercise better, more, right? And not true. It's probably the worst thing they can do. You pull back the exercise, make it smarter, and it's incredible how mitochondrial function will go up, and quickly. So one of the rules about exercise is, as I told you earlier, is interval training. Make sure that's in there, because it's a fairly stressless way to build your muscle as well as aerobic capacity. So that is one. The other way is to avoid the black hole of exercise. And the black hole means chronic exercise at too high of a heart rate, which produces a lot of oxidative stress, damaging mitochondria. You're poisoning your mitochondria. Does that make sense? And we all know the look of these people, right? Think the marathon runners, or better yet, the ultra marathoners. The ones that have overdone it look really old. They're in shape, but they look really old. They have that smoker's look, right? The 3-pack-a-day smoker's look. Lots of oxidative stress. They are in mitochondrial decline. And they don't know why they are depressed. They don't know why their performance is declining. I'm doing everything right. They're not. The black hole is, I have, if you're really interested in it, there's a book called Primal Endurance that describes this in detail. My seminar that we did, not last summer, but the summer before that, I described this in detail also. But essentially what it is, you take 180 minus your age, okay? So let's say you're 50. 180 minus 50, now we're at 130. If you're in really good shape, you put 5 back in, okay? If you're really out of shape, you subtract 5 off of that. So let's say you're medium shape, okay, 130. That is your absolute max for sustained heart rate while doing that 1-hour bicycle ride. My interval training yesterday, I went from about 80, I was between 80 and 160, okay? That's perfectly fine because it was only hitting it for short bits. Okay? But if it's sustained, you got to have a heart monitor and not exceed that number, whatever you calculate it out to be. Really, really important. And for some people, that might mean slowing down for a while until your body gets more efficient at that pace, and then it goes up and above and beyond where you were. So that's the black hole. So to revive mitochondria with food, you need to have revival food. Revival food is what we teach here in the rainbow diet. It's a high antioxidant diet. It's one of the programs we do in our health coaching corner. And basically, it's trying to hit all the colors because they have antioxidants in it, tons of phytonutrients. When you mix all these colors, it's not only anti-inflammatory and very nourishing, but you are getting all the main key components, these vitamins, the C, beta-carotene, zinc, selenium, as the basics for mitochondrial function. Patients feel so much better if that's all they do. Just get the colors in there, make a rainbow. I try to make lots of colors on my plate every meal, because also I know that if you combine colors, your body automatically will make proteins out of that, even though it might just be vegetables. Yeah, it gets this amino acid, that amino acid, it's a mix, puts them all together like one big train. You got the amino acid train, boom, protein. It's awesome. That's how vegetarians do it. And then there's different food plans that are a little more specialized, and these are reset programs, right? So I'm talking more about how we should always eat, Mediterranean kind of a diet. But if you do any of these programs, they have been proven to nourish and regenerate mitochondrial dysfunction. We've got some fascinating research coming out on intermittent fasting. Something I do every week. It's a reset mitochondria-wise, gut-wise, detoxifying, very anti-inflammatory, it gives life. What most Americans are lacking our metabolic flexibility. And I have to remind myself that all the time, because if I throw my patients into really good food and maybe an occasional short fast, they become sick on me. They literally become sick because their body has gotten so used to 3 square meals a day, always being fed the same food. It has no idea what to do with anything else. Another situation. You go into a short fast and they get all shaky, right? They go into this sugar issue, and in theory what's supposed to happen is the other engines are supposed to kick in, and your liver is supposed to put out lots of glycogen, which then gets converted to sugar because a healthy liver can do that. Or it can go into ketosis, which means burning fat as fuel, because we have some fat and it's extremely efficient. Look how long a candle can burn, right? It's burning fat. It's the same thing with energy for us. And this metabolic flexibility is really important, and you can create some of that with intermittent fasting. So every Sunday I skip breakfast. I'm in church. I'm not putting out over here. It's not like I'm suffering here. And I have this incredible lunch with my family. I'm the grill master, right? Lots of nutrients. And then I skip supper. And so I got 2 16-hour fasts that way. It's really not difficult. And it is total reset. And on another day, like today, I'm in keto mode, okay? In a very healthy plant-based mode, lots of nutrients, because today's a very long day, right? It starts very early in the morning and goes and goes and goes, and I better have a brain tonight yet. So in order to do that, I can't afford any of those sugar and carb fluctuations, which causes brain fog, sleepiness, loss of energy, because my last patient deserves as good a care, if not better, as my very first one, right? You gotta be on. And so with keto, you can accomplish that. That at the same time, burning fat right now means that it also, anything excess I might have accumulated in the holidays, gone. Yeah? So keto is done wrong in so many instances. So many people have it be very animal protein based with lots of creams and sauces and fried foods, because it all fits within that. And these people just do horrible. They absolutely do horrible. They might lose some weight in the beginning, but their health just declines. And that's why we worked really hard here at DBC to make a keto that actually is exceedingly healthy. Yes, it's a reset button. It is not something I want you to live the rest of your life. But as a reset button, it's great, and again, creates metabolic flexibility. The fast mimicking diet is very fascinating also. The fast mimicking diet means that instead of an all-out fast, which doesn't really work in the US because as a rule we're just too toxic, which is really sad. Out in California, they've been able to take about $22 million of our tax money and put it towards research as far as how can we best do fasting to help autoimmune diseases, weight, diabetes especially, and just goes on. The list goes on and on and on. And it's just a fascinating way to reset your body, get all the benefits of a fast without being without food. And so with patients that are severely inflamed, autoimmune disease, just the list goes on and on, just anti-aging type of thing. And I don't like the word anti-aging, but I'm using it because people recognize it. But aging well, right? The fast mimicking diet is extremely valuable, and we have our version of it, because you can go to a company called Prolon to do it also. It's packaged food, and you know my dislike for packaged food. We like to do it the way we think is best. Nourish is not a temporary program, right, Don? Nourish is something that comes in 2 phases and is a very sustainable, let's call it the Mediterranean diet for the USA. Okay, it's just very nourishing. It originated here as our program for Alzheimer's patients. It revives neurological function because it nourishes mitochondrial function. And it is a phenomenal way to live long term, and I love it. So our most popular program by far. Yeah, been able to really change lives with that. But with all these foods, the basics apply. Lots of color, real plants, good fats, nutritional fats, right? Some protein. There's a lot of controversy on how much protein, and you know what? It just depends on everybody, because Because if you're bouncing around as a physician from room to room and being really active, you might need a little more protein than, let's say, if you're an accountant, right? It's just the way it is. Okay. So the backbone of mitochondrial function should always include C, E, beta carotene, zinc, selenium. And then you add alpha lipoic acid and NAC, N-A-C, acetylcysteine, in therapeutic amounts. So this is how we, for the past 20 years, since the awareness for mitochondrial function came, have treated our patients. And we've had various formulas that I had made for us and also had gotten from different manufacturers. Our very first formula, 25 years ago, was called Mitochondria Resuscitate, and it had these elements in it. And I saw results. Phenomenal, increased cognition, your neuropathy is improving, but you can only take it to so far. And that was always frustrating, and then of course you start playing with coenzyme Q10, which also affects some of these people. But then came this incredible study, okay, and this was in 2000, Dr. Kaiser. He worked through Berkeley. And the story goes, and I have never heard corroboration, but I've heard it from different fronts, that a big grant was given by a pharmaceutical company. Says, you know, we think there's this huge new market out there on mitochondrial diseases and mitochondrial dysfunction. Find us something. Mistake was made that it didn't say that it had to be a patentable pharmaceutical. So the researchers could do whatever they wanted with it. They came out with the formula that we already knew about, but then added acetyl L-carnitine. And that more than tripled the benefit. And this was very shocking. And we were able to do a 12-week double-blind study, okay, placebo-controlled as well, which is just basically saying the gold standard in research, and found that one of the more hungry mitochondria organs in our body, our immune system, in AIDS patients, which have a severely compromised immune system, and it's extremely hard to get any response out of there, even in that subgroup of population, we could get a 24% increase in just 12 weeks. That was enough of an improvement in immune function that it put AIDS in total remission. And to this day, there's nothing that works better. By the way, peripheral neuropathy, which really is a mitochondrial disease, 42% decrease in just 12 weeks. And as personal experience in our office over here, that improvement keeps going beyond 42%. It does. And I found even better results if I add coenzyme Q10 to that mix. So this was the magic button that was discovered. So we were able to get that formulated for us based on those updated studies and put it in something called MitoBoost, powder and capsules. The powder includes a protein which makes you absorb it even better. And this is what we give to our patients who have obesity. We've had it now for 4 months, and this is why I haven't talked about it, because I wanted to be able to make sure that this was exactly what I was waiting to see. I have seen strange things like tinnitus go away, neuropathy improving dramatically, cognition. I am seeing, and this is corroborated at Berkeley as well, that in cases of Alzheimer's, in just 1 month, you're seeing a dramatic change. In just 1 month. And so the list goes on, but what I love best about it, what I'm seeing on our in-body scan, is an improvement in metabolic rate to the point that it is a very measurable, doc, I feel better, I have less brain fog, and yes, I'm starting to lose weight. So that's what we're seeing there. And I'm also seeing just so many random things. I take it, and I always look up against Thanksgiving through New Year's just a little bit. One is such a big hubbub, and I got so many stressed and distressed patients right, that we have to try to support, and we do so lovingly, but still you go, really, that's not really necessary, you know, it's too bad. But also just a wall of sick patients, because getting together, too many sweets, not enough sleep, too much stress, right, the whole thing, it's when the flu wave hits. And I've been fortunate, and none of you have ever seen me with a cold, I've been able to ward all those things off over these 30 years. But it doesn't mean that I don't ever fight some of that off. Does that make sense? And as a physician, I can feel that. You get just a little bit more tired, you need a little bit more sleep, right? What's that phlegm in my throat type of thing? And so, and that's every December. And I out there hiking, keep maintaining my immune system, eating well, all those things. So this is the first year in my 30 years of practice since I've been taking that. It's like nothing, zero, zip. And it's so obviously my immune system is significantly higher than it usually is, and it's already good, but it's kind of fun just to see that personally as well. So the other nutraceutical that, and the powder, by the way, 1 scoop, the 4 capsules. In order to get benefit, you have to go with 8 capsules a day, or 2 scoops, and then you can go down to 6, and then maintenance is 4, and it can be considered your multiple vitamin. This is a multiple vitamin at the same time. So that makes it therapeutic and economical at the same time. Insugene, I'm really proud of Insugene. This is a compound from an isolate of hops called RIAA, R-I-A-A, all capitalized. And this compound has been shown to activate your insulin receptivity to the point that in some cases it's been proven you can replace it with insulin. So if somebody's insulin dependent, they can get off of insulin using this. Okay, now we're not talking about type 1 diabetics, we're talking to type 2s. And I have been able to, I'm thinking of one case right now, he's a type 1, so theoretically insulin dependent, but he never went on insulin. So I put him on a fair high dose of Insugene, and this is year 5, he still is not on insulin, even though he is a type 1 diabetic. Kind of interesting. A lot of fat loss right here, as well as with fatty liver. Okay, fatty liver disease now is between 12 and 25%. The research is all over the place of our country. And fatty liver disease may be responsible for up to 20,000 deaths a year. Fatty liver disease supposedly not curable. The race is on to find a drug, and there's all kinds of headlines that will cure fatty liver disease. Did you know if you just lost 7% of your body weight, most cases of fatty liver disease is gone? So there's your drug. Yep, there's your drug. So exogenous ketones and MCT oil, these are tools that we use within keto. Sometimes when you're doing keto and you really want to go out, right? It's your anniversary and you want to go out and, oh man, I can't do this or that. You can. You can put yourself into ketosis for up to 3 hours by taking a dose of these salts before you go. It will maintain ketosis even if you didn't quite behave, and that gives you a little bit more flexibility, and that's what we use. Also, for the severely obese, they have a real trouble achieving ketosis in the beginning. We use this in the beginning to achieve ketosis now. It happens within 10 minutes, and I've seen the studies that were just published last week that if you use small doses through the day, you can maintain ketosis all day long, even if you don't eat quite appropriately. I don't recommend doing that because I haven't seen any good long-term studies, but for the occasional use, it can be done. MCT oil gives you the very bioavailable keto bodies that is so desirable. You start going into ketosis, which means burning fat with MCT oil very quickly. It's a nutritional fat. It's derived from coconut oil, concentrated many, many times over. It's a very pure oil that also happens to kill yeast and other bad bugs, so we use it for that as well. I put that through my smoothie. That's how I get my fats, and it's fairly tasteless, so you know it's easy to do. Coenzyme Q10. If there's a neurological case, so I'm off topic, just a little bit off of obesity, just a bit here, but I thought I'd throw it in there. So let's say we know that there's neuropathy, there's Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or MLS or MS or ALS. I always throw in coenzyme Q10 because we know that really drives neurological function. And coenzyme Q10 also can reverse congestive heart failure. So it's a really important compound in that subgroup of patients. And then last year I unleashed the brand new information on ultraflora control, the first probiotic with large amount of clinical trials on it that actually has been proven to reduce waist, abdominal fat, reduces cravings very significantly, and improves gut health. It's called ultraflora control. It's a subgroup of a bifidus bacteria. It's a very specific bacteria, very healthy for you. And this was based on studies coming out of Amsterdam that showed that if with identical twins, if one is obese, diabetic or pre-diabetic, and the other one is not, we could do a transfer of some of the microbiome bugs, so gut bacteria, into the other and duplicate symptoms. So if the skinny one gave some to the obese one, symptoms would improve dramatically within weeks, but the same vice versa. We've also been able to prove that in animal studies where we can make a fat mouse skinny and a skinny mouse fat, not by changing lifestyle, but just by changing the microbiome, and that's what this was based on. So you can't expect that to do everything, but it is certainly of good help. So I love that one because I'm only doing the body favors with that. So, and the other thing that we have to remember, it's a journey. I love my fantastic, sometimes you just hit something bullseye, right? And you get this incredible change. And usually that incredible change is precipitated by other lifestyle changes that patient has done for 5 or 10 years. Okay, so homework, the groundwork has been laid. And sometimes when we make a nutraceutical switch or a lifestyle switch, and all of a sudden the patient just responds like mad, they almost get angry with me and they go, "Doc, had you been holding out on me?" Right? And I go, no, really. What's been happening is we finally hit that tipping point. And those tipping points is what I often put on Facebook. We're a patient of the week or a case of the week. And then sometimes we get this story from other patients, well, how come I can't be like that and this or that? Well, it's because it is a journey. Okay, and for some of us, we have to lose some psychological baggage. Others, we just keep tripping up ourselves. We're doing self-sabotage due to some who knows what trigger. And with others, we haven't quite figured out yet what the whole chemical pathway insufficiency, or maybe there was an undiscovered low adrenal function that we never went after, right? There's all these moving parts, an incredible amount of variables within functional medicine because we're treating all organ systems, not just one thing. And it is a journey, folks, and it never stops. And every year of life is a different year. I can look even back over my life, and if I ate now, like I did when I was, say, 30, and I ate very well back then, I'd be this big now, right? It just wouldn't work. You've got to keep adapting to the new age that you're at, because if you don't, then we're in trouble. So with that, let's continue this journey, and I would love to open it up to any questions you may have. Yeah?
So we're always looking for superfluid.
Mm-hmm.
You have like 6 smoothie recipes that combine these that we can say this would help first thing in the morning?
The problem is these 3. The acetyl L-carnitine, you cannot get to that high a level without eating about 40 pounds of broccoli in one smoothie. So, right, it's a bit of a problem. So these are change agents, right? Whereas the smoothies is part of the whole health picture to feed detoxification pathways, keep inflammation low, feed the good bacteria, right? And has nutrients in it that we don't even know about that might be benefiting us in many other ways. So I'm telling you how you can turbocharge the process. It reminds me of the original Ultramil 360 that had what's the equivalent of Insugen in it, and that was a smoothie. And we were able to prove that in 3 months with that, we could achieve what 5 years of Mediterranean diet does. So you're just turbocharging things, and yeah, it always starts with food first, but sometimes you have to go up and above and beyond. So. Yep. Any other questions? Yes.
How does your plan for the fast mimicking diet work, or your intermittent fasting?
Okay. Don, would you love to address that one? How does your plan for fast mimicking diet or intermittent fasting work?
Sure. So the fast mimicking diet has a set a prescribed, you follow this, you eat this quantity of these particular foods. It meets a certain macronutrient makeup so that your body is still feeling the nourishment that it needs, but it will be in a fasting state, so you'll get the results that we're looking for.
Yeah. And what's really neat about the fast mimicking diet is the rebuilding that occurs, because really the race is on right now for a drug that does what fast mimicking diet does, and that is something called autophagy, which is just a word for getting rid of debris in the body. Right? We all have debris that we don't need. And it might be some cartilage loss right over here, some floating cartilage. It might be vasculitis, varicosities, just I'm going on and on, just different things. But the body actually triggers repair in those areas, so there's less of a load in the body. So there's less energy expenditure going on afterwards to try to keep things fixed. So it becomes a more of a smooth sailing boat, vessel, so to speak, which metabolism just goes up after that. So it's a way of restoring health, but also metabolism and losing weight at the same time. So I'm totally in love with the fast mimicking diet. And intermittent fasting, I almost look at it as its little cousin, where you do just a tiny bit of it every week. And it's a fairly easy thing to do. Yes?
What did you say you did exactly for the IMF?
Okay, so what I do is Sunday morning, I skip my breakfast. I have some tea, right? And I take my probiotic. That's all I do Sunday morning. And then we have this awesome lunch. I start making it around noon, and by 1:30 we have it, right? Like I said, I was the grill master, and usually we grill vegetables, and maybe this last Sunday we had this awesome salmon and wild caught. So we had that combination along with even some mashed potatoes. This is Sunday, so we go outside our door almost a little bit. These are mashed potatoes that my wife puts all kinds of things through it, and it's unbelievable. So we do that along with some what else we have? Homemade applesauce, and so it's a very nourishing meal. Maybe not perfect in every way, but it's extremely nourishing. And that's it for me for the day. At night, we might have a small snack, but that's it. So there's a 16-hour break from food right there,
Before
and after. So this is my easy way of doing it. But that's what fits me, but it doesn't mean it fits you. So you got to figure out, it was just an example, so you got to figure out how to do it if you're going to do it. And it can be done up to twice a week. Beyond that, I don't know how much benefits there are. But what you are doing is creating metabolic flexibility. So now when I go to one of my conferences and I have one of these flights to Seattle or wherever I'm going, I can easily skip food because, try to find food in the airport. I'd rather just not eat. But I don't suffer because I have flexibility. My other engines are kicking in. Whereas other people might be really hungry and getting shaky and all that. Yeah? Any other questions? Yes?
Is it okay to do the intermittent fasting more than a day or two? I find myself sometimes doing it 4 or 5 days.
I just don't have research on it.
Okay.
So I would say be your own physician, as you truly are, and see how you feel with that. Yeah, what does it do for me?
I'm not hungry when I get up, so.
Right. So it might be okay. It's probably an individual thing.
I do eat, when my last meal is at my dinner, so
Right.
I do eat 2 meals.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it might be good for you. Any other questions? Yes?
When you were talking about the different kinds of medications that were really, really bad,
Mm-hmm.
well, you're talking about someone who has been through cancer and quadruple bypass and diabetes.
Right.
How do you get rid of any of that stuff that's keeping him alive for me?
Well, you don't just knock away those pharmaceuticals, right? So sometimes you have to work with the pharmaceuticals
Okay.
in place. There's always room for improvement. It's just maybe not the ideal, right? What I'm describing is the ideal, because that's what I have to do. But very often there's a compromise, and one of my patients this afternoon is on 2 different heart medications, and without it, he would go into AFib, he would probably stroke out on me, and there's no way I'm touching that right now.
Right.
But I'm working on it. He's actually doing keto. And he's saying, well, Doc, I only lost 4 pounds, but man, I feel so much better. And I could see it walking in the room today. He just looks healthier. So I know inflammation is decreasing, right, which is going to help all kinds of things. And maybe in the near future, we can cut his medications in half, right, and decrease the toxicity load. And I'm just gradually working on all the things that the medications have damaged and replacing what I feel he's lost, and thus improving quality of life.
Okay.
So, yes. So pharmaceuticals have a purpose. Maybe they're overutilized, no question about that, but they have a purpose, and it's part of healthcare. Yes. Yes. We have a, yeah.
Those nutrients listed on there, are those things you only use for specific situations, or would anyone benefit from it?
Anyone would benefit from it. That's why I'm taking it. Yeah. I don't sense that I have mitochondrial fatigue, but the fact that my immune system seemed less affected this season tells me, no, it obviously could use a little leg up.
So do you just use it then, or do you use it all the time?
I'm going to use it all year.
Okay.
Yeah. And yes.
Okay, you talked about interval training. What about weight training? I mean, is that benefiting mitochondrial development, or is it not? Or what is the story on that type of thing?
Okay.
Or yoga, or anything that you're putting,
Yeah.
muscle on?
Yeah. Blake, come on over here. I want you to address this.
Yeah, I was thinking about this in the back, wanting to raise my hand and address this before somebody had even asked. I'm just like dying inside. And you did it, Jerry. Thank you.
There you go, Blake.
So, okay, yes, there is a wonderful way of boosting your mitochondrial density. Now, if you just sat through this presentation and you're like, wow, this mitochondria is really good, which it is, like, right, I'm very convinced this mitochondria is a huge factor. So boosting your mitochondria, strength training all the way. Resistance training will increase your mitochondria density. So all of these things that we're talking about, right? You get more mitochondria in there, it's going to make all of this stuff more effective. So if you're not doing resistance training, you got to. You definitely should be. And it only gets more important as you get older. It gets so much more important. You know, and this is just nicking the surface of it, right? With this mitochondria, you're talking about increased muscle strength, flexibility, increased bone density, insulin resistance, right? Resistance training is by far the most bang for your buck in hitting all of these categories. So, yeah, resistance training, all right? Resistance training is it. That's how you do it.
Okay, another question, Blake. Would you consider yoga resistance training? Because
I would not.
you would not.
I kind of consider, not that yoga is bad, but yoga to me is like, it's stretching and working out kind of combined into one, but it's not really either or the other.
And it's great for the brain, right? Sometimes my long bike ride, I think there's some benefits on the weekends with it, but it's more of a brain thing than anything at that point. That's important too.
Definitely,
right?
yeah.
And if I can jump in on this one, my first practice is I still remember this guy. So it was professional athletes basically what I saw, and I remember doing this posture check on this big hulking guy that comes in. You know, they're all walking like this, you know.
Carrying the suitcases.
Carrying the suitcases, and I remember as a little kid doing that, you know. This. Anyway, so he comes in. I says, "Okay, fine, stop the charade, and let's do a posture check. So straighten out your arms." He goes like that. Yep. Okay, good. And I'm doing my posture check, and then relax. Boing, 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 boing. And I had to do it again. So, okay, like that. Make sure you straighten out. Yep, good. Now just relax. Boing, 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 boing. And I figured out, this is unbelievable. This guy, all he's been doing is lifting heavy weights and never stretching, causing increased bulk, but loss of flexibility. So these guys essentially become very strong, very powerful, but they're bulldozers. They're not. They've lost that athletic edge that you need with flexibility, because flexibility is important as well. Mm-hmm. And that's where yoga can jump in. And that's when I started with my professional athletes recommending yoga once a week. Yeah.
The best thing you can do is a well-rounded program. And that's what I do at BBC Fit downstairs is our gym. In February will actually be like our 3-year anniversary of it. And that's what I do, is combining all of these different elements and trying to make the best well-rounded training program for you. It's very individualized and tailored to you. So, and that's the best thing you can do. We cover a little bit of everything throughout the sessions. So that's one recommendation that I could make. The athletes that get the least amount of injuries are the athletes that are the most well-rounded. They're doing all different kinds of training, not just one specific thing. When you start to dive into just one specific thing, that's when we start to see injuries become more frequent. So, well-rounded, hit a little bit of everything, okay?
So you think he's enthusiastic about what he does?
Back to how many times a week for the weightlifting?
Oh, strength training,
Strength training.
I recommend 2 to 3.
Okay.
Yep. An upper body program and a lower body program, and then something that maybe combines the two. Mhm.
Your interval training numbers. So if I'm going to be 70 soon,
Yeah.
so I should be at a constant 110, above 110.
Right. Doesn't mean you can't go interval training. You can do whatever you want.
But I can do like 30 seconds, let's say.
No problem. I'm talking.
Go to 150.
Absolutely.
And then walk and get it back down to. I have a program,
Yeah.
Sprint 90, where you do 30 seconds, 90 seconds, and you do that
Great.
6 times.
Great. It's beautiful. And there's some controversy in different levels of evidence for how long and how short. So I'm not going to get into that. It should be a minimum of 15 seconds though, and probably not exceed 30. But part of aging well, especially cardiovascularly, is to be able to have a wide range of resting versus maximum.
Variability.
Yeah, heart rate variability. It's an exceedingly accurate way of measuring how well a heart is aging. So you got to keep that elasticity going. Yep, go for it. Yes.
I was just saying, like, what is the carnitine doing, I guess, on a cellular level? That's what my question was.
Okay, so what the carnitine is doing is it takes free fatty acids, which is the fuel, one of the fuels for mitochondria, glucose and free fatty acids, and allows it to be channeled into the mitochondria at 3 to 4 times the rate of norm. So it supercharges the mitochondrial function that way. Okay? Before we knew which nutrients, but that was like, ooh, this really pounds it in there. That was the magic formula change. Yeah. Yes.
So that mitochondria solution, or I forget what you call the supplement, but it can be a replacement for a multivitamin.
Yeah, absolutely.
In my health journey, I've been taking. It just seems like I'm taking a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm taking zinc. I'm taking
Sure.
the liver one.
Yeah.
Plus a multivitamin.
Yeah.
Plus
Yeah.
fish oil.
Right. I would add fish oil for sure.
Yeah.
Right, because of its incredible benefits. And we're in Michigan. I would definitely do vitamin D. Right, that's 94% of Kent County is deficient in vitamin D. So there's a little bit of backlash against vitamin D, which I knew would happen.
Afraid you get well.
What's that?
No, afraid you're.
Yeah, they're afraid you're going to get well. So when you go to Grand Haven and you lounge around in your shorts there for most of the day, you're getting 15,000 units of vitamin D on average a day. So 5,000 is maintenance for most. And the only people that on blood work have exceeded my upper limit on that are the ones that are supplementing crazy amounts for a long time. So because I will push 30 to 40,000 units of vitamin D very short term per day in order to rev up your immune system temporarily.
All right. Best just in the winter, if you are somebody that spends a lot of time outside in the summer, which I do.
Yeah, then they're just winter.
Right.
So the funny thing is, if you spend a lot of time outdoors, you're even more susceptible than most with dropping vitamin D levels because your body's so hooked to that level.
Right.
Does that make sense? So for you, the supplementation is even more important.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your goal as far as the vitamin D levels on the blood test?
70 to 90. Yeah, that's where optimum. In the Netherlands, once you reach 110, they say don't supplement anymore. Over here, I saw one lab come in last week, said over 60, therefore toxic. And I'm going, where'd that come from? Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
You said that if they do the keto diet wrong, they get some kind of arthritis.
Yeah, you can trigger autoimmune disease, and really, you're creating too much toxicity. Your body has no way of getting rid of it.
Can that be reversed?
Yes.
Do you have a written plan for the keto diet correctly?
I do. And that's something you call Don on, because we do, like Don and Jamie, love to teach it to you in a session, because so many people do it wrong, and I want to make sure they do it just spot on. So yes, yeah, we have it carefully spelled out. Good. Yeah, you're welcome. Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming.
More questions, I have another.
Okay.
What do they use in Europe instead of statins?
Well, it's first of all, they don't consider cholesterol that big an issue as they do here. So there's that. The only thing that they really worry about over there is triglycerides, because that is a sign of glucose metabolism issues and inflammation. They also like to watch LDL. The whole story of LDL is really complicated. And LDL is a very small particle that can cause death by when you accumulate a lot of LDLs in one area and you have a high glucose, high stress, high fat event that can cause such an inflammatory response that that thing can burst, all the debris can go downstream, and that causes the acute myocardial infarction. Okay? So, but if the patient's in a non-inflamed state, LDLs do nothing. Okay? They are fairly harmless. The triglycerides is, like I said, very much related to carbs and glucose. The HDL is a marker for how much exercise the patient's getting. So as a physician, I can tell lifestyle with the cholesterol profile, and I use it that way. Oh, you're eating too many carbs, or oh, you're not exercising enough, or oh, your LDL is high, it means your liver's not happy. See, and then I just institute lifestyle changes and watch the cholesterol normalize. I'm not doing it to really prevent heart attacks as much as anybody else is. Does that make sense? It's kind of interesting to note that half of fatal heart attacks have normal cholesterol. It's just, yeah.
If someone is on a statin, can they stop it abruptly without any trouble?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it's not like a blood pressure med where you have to titrate it down. If you've been on a statin for a long time, you put coenzyme Q10 in because you are deficient in coenzyme Q10 because it eats up coenzyme Q10, but you can just stop it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for peace of mind, I'll test it right here just to see what's going on with it, but more of a peace of mind thing. Yeah. Yes?
I have a question. Do you do, and this is not necessarily based on this, but do you do any baseline testing for Alzheimer's?
Yes, there's different testings, and there's a really nice test called the MOCA test, and it's a very simple thing to do, and it's baseline. This is where we're at, and then we institute. I'm fully certified in the Bredesen protocol, and I was so happy that this guy, this medical doctor, came along and was the first to publish that you can reverse Alzheimer's. Right? It's been published in a top-tier medical journal, and that was 3 years ago, and I was so happy to see that because I could see that firsthand in my office that beginning Alzheimer's especially could be reversed just by loading them up with the proper nutrients, getting rid of why Alzheimer's was triggered in the first place, if you could figure that out. For some people it's hormones, other people's heavy metals, others it's diabetes of the brain, right? There's various causes. But he's the one that was able to segmentalize it into 7 subtypes and then gave nutritional protocol for each of those subtypes. So he made it a little bit more clear on how to go after it, which I'm really thankful for. And as soon as I saw that, I made sure I was the first class to sign up to be fully certified in it. And he's also the one that uses MOCA tests as a baseline, and then you watch it improve every 2 to 3 months. It's pretty neat how it works. Yeah, it's inexpensive to do. You can get it online. Yeah.
Who's that doctor? Is that Prolar?
No, Dale Bredesen.
UCLA. Spell that?
What's that?
Spell that?
Bredesen. Dale Bredesen. He published a best-selling book called The End of Alzheimer's. New York Times bestseller. Yeah. I spoke with him at length just a few months ago in Arizona. And he's super interested in this practice because we do so much of that, and he's trying to convince me to start keeping track better and having him publish some of these case results. But I haven't done it because that's so much more paperwork again, unfortunately. Yeah. Anywho, yeah, got it covered. So I understand there's some major basketball game going on right now. I just found out about that because I told somebody to come over here. And they said, Doc, no, how could you? There's this final basketball game. I have no idea what. So I really appreciate you being here. And thank you. Yeah.